Hi, this is Cora Stack here, Dr. Stack again. I just wanted to talk about um, this has been on my mind, and I think it's not discussed enough. So let's have a discussion. And I've written a policy paper on this for consideration, and I've been thinking about it for the last number of several weeks now. So, rights on paper and tying it into other work that I've been doing over the last number of years. So, rights on paper, not in practice. AI, artificial intelligence, everyday decisions, and the limits of accountability. So, everyday decisions are being made about our lives, your life, whether you got a loan, whether you got a job, whether you got a loan, how much you pay for insurance, whether you're flagged as high risk, and how public services are allocated. It's got a shocking, really. Increasingly, these decisions are not being made by people alone, but by initially automated and AI-driven systems. It's shocking, really, how quickly this has happened. It's like a light, like lightning. The question is not whether these decisions are fair. The question is, can you realistically or one realistically challenge them? My paper examines a growing gap in modern democracies, or discusses it, the gap between rights that exist in law and the ability to use those rights in practice or to access the rights in practice. Formally, democratic systems are intact, legal rights exist, courts are available, and in theory, regulatory systems are beginning to be put in place. But in reality, many people face significant barriers in trying to challenge decisions that affect their lives already, even before artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence now is like a lightning bolt into the whole this issue. This is not a theoretical issue; it's a structural one. So let's look at the everyday decisions you cannot realistically challenge. Consider the types of decisions increasingly shaped by automated systems. Job application filtered by algorithm screening tools. I mean, this is shocking to me. Credit scoring systems determining access to loans or mortgages, before a human ever makes a decision. So it really seems to be the cart before the horse here. Insurance pricing based on predictive models, online platforms deciding visibility, access, or exclusion, public sector systems allocating resources or identifying risks. Again, shocking. In many cases, you are not told exactly how the decision was made, you're not given meaningful explanation, and you may not even know who is responsible. Even where legal rights exist, such as data protection rights, the right to challenge decisions, the practical barriers are clearly significant. Understanding the system, obtaining evidence, identifying the correct legal route, and funding legal action. For most individuals, these barriers are simply too high. So, in practice, these decisions are rarely challenged. I mean, I haven't heard of any major case in Ireland, for example, and perhaps it's the same elsewhere. This raises a fundamental question. Is the legal system as currently designed fit for purpose in this context? Modern legal systems were developed around identifiable decision makers, clearly defined events, and individual disputes. But if you look at AI driven systems, they operate differently. Decisions are distributed, responsibility may be shared across multiple actors, so who's liable? And harm may be diffuse or cumulative. And at the same time, legal processes remain expensive, slow, and procedurally complex. This creates a mismatch, in my opinion, between how decisions are made and how accountability mechanisms operate. And I think we're behind the times, really, here in facing up to this. AI as a structural amplifier. So the point here is that artificial intelligence intensifies, in my opinion, existing structural challenges with like the force of lightning. If you to put it mildly, it induces opacity, decisions that are difficult to explain, scale, affecting large numbers of people simultaneously, complexity, requiring specialised technical expertise to understand. These features raise the threshold for effective challenge. They do not remove rights, but they make those rights significantly harder to exercise in practice. I mean, this just makes sense just from looking at it. So, where EU regulation currently stands, as I understand it, in response to these challenges, the European Union has introduced the AI Act. This is one of the first comprehensive attempts globally to regulate artificial intelligence. The AI Act takes a risk based approach. Some uses of AI are prohibited, others are classified as high risk and subject to strict requirements. Lower risk systems face transparency obligations. For high risk systems, requirements include documentation and record keeping, human oversight, risk management, and certain transparency obligations. However, there are important limitations. The regulation is complex and will be implemented over time. So the Act isn't in place at the moment. Enforcement depends on national regulatory capacity. And for individuals, the ability to challenge specific decisions remain closely linked to, the local existing legal systems, including their costs and complexity. So while the regulatory framework is developing, questions about practical access to accountability remain. So the central issue is not whether rights exist, it is whether they can be accessed at all or used. If decisions are difficult to understand, extremely difficult to trace, and then naturally very difficult to challenge, then accountability becomes more formal than real. And that has huge direct implications for how democracy functions in practice. So I'm just looking at this in terms of the AI not just being a bolt of lightning onto onto the world, but in terms of a bolt of lightning onto democracy and democratic systems. So and legal systems, and all of that. So democratic systems do not usually fail through sudden collapse. They change through gradual shifts in how power operates and how decisions can be challenged. Today, many of the decisions as we know, that shape everyday life are becoming more complex, more automated, and less accessible to scrutiny. The question is not whether systems exist. The question is whether individuals, ordinary citizens, still have a realistic ability to challenge the decisions that affect them. Because without that, accountability becomes limited, even if it still exists in theory. So it's a huge question, in my opinion, and we need a lot more discussion about it. So I've just written a paper that's just raising concerns about the speed at which this is coming into all areas of our lives, affecting all areas of our lives, and our complete inability to challenge the questions, or if our rights are being hugely affected or undermined, our access to justice to get those rights reversed, or to get those to get our rights respected, are hugely undermined. And the question is the legal system as currently constituted fit for purpose? This is a major question, I think, that we need to start talking about. So I'm just raising it as an issue for consideration, because it's a massive issue, and we see very little discussion about it really, compared to the effect it's having on the lives of ordinary people on a day-to-day basis.